A Promise Kept, the friendship of Clem Abig and Clyde Lincoln.
When I was a young girl, I always knew about my Uncle Clem. He was my dad's oldest brother, the oldest of 7. And I knew he had been killed in Italy in World War II in 1944. But I didn't know much else about that. Clem grew up on a farm. They were a Mennonite family, and he had lots of siblings. Clem volunteered for the war, and while he was at training in Texas, he met a good friend. They were both 19 years old, and neither one of them had ever been off the farm. Clyde was from Tennessee. The night before they were to go into battle, and my Uncle Clem said to his friend Clyde, "Could we switch addresses?" And he just said, "I have a premonition that I'm not going to make it through this. I've been lucky for too long." And so that's how they switched addresses and how that address was found in my uncle's wallet. My Uncle Clem had a watch. It was an illuminated dial. And so he had that on his arm. And as they went along, Clyde kept asking him what time it was, the time they went into battle, to the time that he knew that my Uncle Clem had gotten shot, that was the exact time. And obviously from the impact, the stem of it had broken off and just kind of kept that time forever right there. The telegram arrived back Clem's home in Shelby, Michigan, stating that he'd been killed in action on the 12th of May, 1944 in Italy. But obviously it didn't say anything more. There were other telegrams to follow. When Grandpa Eli, Clem's dad, got the piece of paper that had Clyde Lincoln's name and address on it, he was very curious as to what did this mean. And so he contacted that address. He was able to talk with them, and he exchanged letters back and forth with my family for quite a long time.
We were going to take our kids down to Florida, and so we wrote Clyde and his wife Flossie a note and asked if we could stop on the way, because the family had lost contact with him. And they said yes. And so the big plans went into effect. And we rolled in. And that was quite an amazing visit to see him and his wife and to talk about his life. And he asked about the Abig family and told us how close he was to Clem and a lot of the war stories. It was really touching to meet a man who we thought was very old at the time. He was in his 60s like we are now, but we thought he was so old. To be telling a story and to stay in touch with Clem's family. And that meant a lot to us.
Over the years, Clyde and his wife Flossie kept in contact with us, and they let us know when Flossie passed away, and then it just became Clyde and his daughter Barbara. She got a hold of us and said, "How would you like company? That we would like to bring my dad up to see you. He really wants to see you and Phil." So we said, of course. That was so exciting. And sure enough, they showed up, Barbara and her dad, Clyde. He was 94 at the time. And he came to our house, and he was just so thrilled to be able to see the kids and the grandkids. When he saw the watch, he touched his heart, and he started to cry. And at that time, I'd ask him, "Did you ever think that when you made that promise to my uncle when you were both 21 years old, that you would still keep that promise for this many years?" And he smiled and said no. But he had things on his mind, I think, at that age of things that he needed to do. One was to come up here and to see us. And then the second thing he did later was that he asked his daughter Barbara to take him back to Mississippi to where that POW camp was at. And he took pictures and some writings, and he presented that museum that they have there with information of his time when he was there. And the other thing he did is he sat down and he wrote out his memoirs of all the time from being in basic training and in the war.
Earlier this year, Clyde Lincoln passed away on September 23, 2018. But he kept an amazing 74-year promise to the Abig family.
He really wanted our family to always remember that freedom isn't free, that there are boys like Uncle Clem that had died for that freedom.